This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
British Spy Stories Season 4 Double Agent Episode 10 The knock on the back door of the Sigma 17 safe house in Zurich is expected. "Hello, Gordon," says Kate, and kisses him on the cheek. "Long time no see, Kate." They chat about the operations they've been on since the last time they worked together. Kate hears someone walk into the kitchen behind her. "Hey, Kate," says Gabby. She has her shoulder strapped up. Hans says he needs to chase up some GCHQ inquiries, and the women go to a sunroom at the side of the house to have coffee. "What did London say about your accident?" says Kate. "Well, it was unofficial. They don't have to know everything," says Gabby. "We make our own decisions in the field. You know that's what happens." Kate stops for a moment, then says, "Talking about unofficial work, I'm here to confess some of my own." "What have you done?" "I got recruited to be an assassin by a criminal gang after they attacked me, and I needed to find out why." Kate relates the story of David, the attack, meeting L'Equipe 84 and Zetkin, and the message coming through to kill David. "Why does Zetkin want to kill an architect?" says Gabby. Kate shakes her head. "I sent you a message as soon as Zetkin's name came up as part of your live op. I thought we should talk." "What do you know about David?" "Not much, to be honest. Quiet, single, good in bed." "You didn't suspect anything? No skeletons in the closet, no time when you were talking and he suddenly changed the subject?" "Nothing," says Kate. "He has no criminal record. I checked on Oberon. I even got London to check with MI5. Maybe we can use your insider role to trap Zetkin," says Gabby. "The mission for Barwood is to collapse Friedrich Andersen. We'll do that by removing Amandine. We know that Zetkin is very close to her, hence our disruption on the lake. We need to break that intimacy, because he's her route into numerous terrorist groups. She has the funding, and he has the contacts. For me to maintain my credibility with them," says Kate, "we need to address the David issue. They'll expect him to be dead within a few days." "Then we'll fake it," says Gabby. "I'll get a DS-14 approval to brief a civilian with secret information. Then you can talk to David." "Won't we need a dead body?" says Kate. "Zetkin's going to want proof of death." Hans opens the door to the sunroom at that moment. "Gabby, there's a message from Sir Bernard asking to talk to you urgently." She stands up. "Gordon, can you talk to the British Embassy in Zurich about requisitioning a corpse?" Hans looks bemused. "What's that for?" "Kate'll tell you," she says, and walks out. When Gabby reaches the IT room, she selects options from the screen desktop and launches the Secure Video Feed application. The screen shows the MI6 insignia for a few seconds. Then the video feed switches through, and she can see Sir Bernard in his office in Vauxhall Cross. "Agent Blackhawk, good morning." "Hello, Sir Bernard." "I'm the bearer of bad news, I'm afraid." She waits for him to continue. "Agent Foxfold, Vincent Fevrier, was found dead this morning." "What happened, sir?" "Unclear as yet," says Sir Bernard. "The Berlin police were called to a hotel in the early hours. His throat had been cut." "Given his double status, sir, I'm guessing he was being run by the British Embassy in Berlin? What are they saying?" "His handler there has disappeared," he says. We can't get hold of her on comms, and she's turned off the tracker in her arm."
"Who is she?"
says Gabby. "Agent Thornwood, Maya Lorenz. Do you know her?"
"No, sir,"
she says. "I want your help, Gabrielle."
"What do you need, sir?"
"Find Maya Lorenz and—" He hesitates.
"And ask her if she killed him?"
Sir Bernard clears his throat. "Quite."
"Is there a suspicion that she's the killer, sir?"
"We don't know yet, to be honest, until she's found. But the initial police report says Fevrier was naked in bed when he died, and there had been someone in the bed with him."
"Does she have a history of instability?" says Gabby. "It just seems an odd thing for a handler to do, when they've been running a double. They're normally the most capable ones."
"Agreed," he says. "I don't know about her history. All we can say is that it seems likely she was there when the attack happened, and she's a witness, at the very least."
"I'll need extra resource, sir. I'm going to requisition Kate Grosvenor, Agent Coniston."
"Whatever you need."
Gabby commits to report back to him in a couple of days, and walks back to the sunroom after closing the link down. She puts her head around the door. "Kate, you've been drafted," she says. "And we've got an extra job to do." They return to the bedroom with the IT screens, and Gabby asks Hans to pull up the personal file for Maya Lorenz. "Can you read it out and paraphrase, please, Hans?" He turns to the main screen and begins.
"Agent Thornwood, Maya Elizabeth Lorenz, birthday the 15th of May. She was recruited as a trainee by the SIS 12 years ago and was posted to the British Embassy in Paris to be one of the embedded spooks there. She did that job for about 4 years. She must have done well, as they put her on a senior management development scheme and gave her promotion and a new posting to Madrid. Then, 2 years later, she moved to Berlin. Again, standard spook work in the British Embassy. Then she was promoted again and given 2 assets to run. My security classification isn't high enough to show the names of those assets, but yours would be, Gabby."
He looks at her and she nods, but doesn't volunteer to log in and allow him to see the names. One of them, she thinks, is Vincent Fevrier.
"That's it, really," says Hans. "There's not much more on the official record."
"What's the job we're doing?" says Kate. Gabby takes a breath. "Maya Lorenz has disappeared."
"A standard seek and locate," says Hans. "Why ask us?"
"London thinks that she was at the scene of a murder." Hans and Kate are still bemused as to what makes this a job for them. Gabby continues. "And the murder was of Vincent Fevrier." Hans whistles. "Who's that?" says Kate.
"The husband of Amandine Lecroix," says Hans. "The Operation Barwood target."
Kate opens her eyes wider.
"Does Amandine know about her husband's death?"
"I imagine the Berlin police will have told her," says Gabby. "It was last night."
"I'll let Laravel know."
He pulls his phone out and sends an encrypted message to their colleague. "I need the 2 of you to go to Berlin tomorrow," says Gabby, "and search Maya's all known addresses."
"Does this undermine our Barwood plan?"
"I'm not clear yet. Vincent Fevrier was never a target for us. We may have to adapt and use his death to our benefit somehow."
"I'll book some plane tickets," he says.
Gavin hasn't been to this pub before, for a reason that escapes him, and he's been to most of the pubs that are within a mile of the Houses of Parliament in London. As he pushes open the door from the street, the warm air from inside escapes for a second, before the door swings back closed behind him. The Clarence Public House has smart red cushioned seating around the edge of the room, with traditional scrubbed round pub tables next to it. It had surprised Gavin when Rose suggested meeting in this place. When Larry had been his contact, they had only ever met
Once. And that was at the very beginning, when Larry had insisted they meet in the middle of Hyde Park, a location that Gavin still thinks was unnecessarily dramatic. Rose appears beside him, suddenly. He can't work out if she just walked in, or has been here all the time. She offers to buy a round. There's a lull in the flow of customers for a moment, and she is served immediately. They walk to the red seating and find a place that is slightly away from the other drinkers. "You messaged me," she says. "About money." He takes a sip of his beer. "Well, you know, Larry and I did speak about my rate, and he was always very positive. We talked about a starting fee which would increase when I delivered a few times, and he could see how valuable it all was." Rose has had her wine glass to her lips while he's been talking. Now, she says quietly, "No, you didn't. I can assure you, Rose, that all of the conversations with Larry were recorded," she says, matter-of-factly. "Really?" His face shows surprise. "Why did he do that?" "We record all of our conversations with clients." "Are you recording me now?" he says. "Yes." The face shows no emotion. "In case we need to clarify any details of our agreements in the future." "Well, I want copies of those recordings." He's getting more disconcerted. "Of course. I'll send you a link." She looks directly at him. "Now, money?" "I feel that my services to you are highly valuable, and my fee hasn't gone up in 2 years. "You won't get any more money?" Her voice remains cold and distant. "Well, then I'll have to consider stopping our arrangement." He takes a mouthful of beer as a finishing flourish to his statement. "There are people in my organization, Gavin." She turns her green eyes to him. "Who won't be pushed around. They aren't very understanding." "That's not my problem." "Gavin." She stops until he is looking at her. "Becky and Lily are at risk if you stop." "Are you threatening me?" he says quietly, as he doesn't want his voice to carry across the pub. "No," says Rose. "I'm just telling you what will happen." "You're being ridiculous. I'll go to the police." "And tell them that you've been selling private details of civil servants." Gavin is silent. He picks up his beer and drinks some more. There's an awkward pause. Then he says, "Well, there may be nothing I can do to report you, but you lot have had the last information you're getting from me." Rose drinks some wine. "You need to think very carefully, Gavin." "Look, I'm a British MP. You can't go around threatening me. Do you understand?" He stands up. "Thanks for the drink, Rose. Don't contact me again." "Gavin," she calls after him as he walks towards the door. But he's not listening. He hails a cab on Whitehall and it gets stuck in traffic as they try to get out onto Park Lane. But after that is a good run from Marble Arch and up the Edgware Road. As the taxi turns the corner into his street, he can see the blue flashing light of a police car up ahead. As the cab gets nearer, Gavin realises that the police car is outside of his house. The cab is on account, so he steps out as soon as it stops. A female police officer is standing at the front door, with a male officer next to her. "What's this about?" says Gavin as he approaches. "Are you Mr. Gavin Masters, sir?" "Yeah, what's going on?" "Can we talk inside, sir?" "Is the blue light necessary?" he says. "Can we turn that off?" The male officer walks to the car and leans inside to switch the flashing off. "May I?" says Gavin, pointing to his front door, as the policewoman hasn't moved from her position blocking it. She steps aside and he unlocks the door, then beckons the police to follow him inside. "Darling," he calls once he's in the hallway. But there's no answer from Becky, so Gavin leads the group into the kitchen. "Tea?" he says, but they both decline. "What's this about?" "It's your wife we wanted to talk to, sir." "Okay, what about?" "We'd rather talk to her direct, sir. Do you know when she'll be home?" Gavin creases his face up in disapproval. "I don't. Can you not share anything? I can phone the police commissioner, if that's easier." "That won't be necessary, sir." Gavin makes tea for himself, and they wait, with Gavin trying to ask interesting questions about the state of modern policing to get their point of view. After 20 minutes, the sound of a key can be heard in the front door. "Here she is," says Gavin. "Darling, in the kitchen. There are some police here." Becky walks in. "Where's Lily?" "At Jenny Clark's house," says Becky. "She likes her. We met her parents in the summer. Do you remember?" He nods in recognition of the memory. "Rebecca Masters?" says the female police officer. "Yes." Becky turns to the woman. "Rebecca Masters, you're under arrest for suspicion of conspiracy to murder Leo Haas. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something that you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand, madam?" There's a silence in the still air around them. "This must be a mistake, officer." "We can discuss it at the station, sir." "Come on, this is ridiculous. Conspiracy to murder?" he says, then adds, "Hang on, I'll call the police commissioner. We sit on a committee together. I'm sure we can sort all this out." Gavin pulls out his mobile and dials a number. He walks into the lounge and has a conversation for 5 minutes that the others can hear starts calmly and builds into a shouting match. When he returns to the kitchen, Gavin looks at Becky and says, in a very controlled tone, "It appears that there is some evidence. The commissioner can't do anything until it's investigated. Do you know this man, Leo Haas?" She doesn't want to talk about the night at the club, because she had made up a fictional story about going to dinner with Sylvia, and they had lost track of time, which is why she wasn't home until 2 a.m. "Do I have to be arrested?" says Becky. "I'm sorry, darling. I'll call Mitchell. He'll be there in the room with you." He turns to the police and adds, "He's our lawyer." A tear, which had been building in Becky's eye, rolls down her cheek. "What about Lily?" "I'll follow you down. Then I'll pick her up later. Don't worry. I'm sure it's just mistaken identity." "Madam?" says the female officer. She holds her arm up towards the door. "Shall we go?"